But let me talk about a guy that's essentially, he's the Double Move Sports mascot. He's the guy that we rally behind every single year as the super late double-digit round, high upside value, the go-to flex, the go-to wide receiver 4 or 5 for your fantasy roster. And he's always being slept on. And it's Marvin Jones Jr.
Let's go.
His ADP right now is in the early 11th round per underdog. And you have Marvin Jones, you have MJJ. He leaves Detroit, and he leaves Matt Stafford at 31 years old. Goes with his offensive coordinator, Darrell Bevell, to the Jacksonville Jaguars. And so now you have a guy that knows how to use Marvin Jones. We've seen Darren Bevell offenses air the ball out. For example, like when Matt Stafford was on an MVP trajectory the first half of 2019, and Marvin Jones was looking like he was going to be a wide receiver 1 that first half of the year with Kenny Golladay. And over the last 5 years as an offensive coordinator, his wide receiver 1 has always produced monster fantasy seasons, over 1,000 yards, a ton of volume. And in 2020, with Kenny Golladay out for most of the year for the Lions, Marvin Jones was thrown into a wide receiver 1 role and was a top 20 wide receiver in fantasy points per game. He was still a touchdown machine, and he was 2 receptions away from 1,000 yards with 978 receiving yards. So this is a guy that I think can get it done. He's proven himself. He's a known commodity, and that's why the Jacksonville Jaguars wanted to bring him in, because he comes into a situation with Trevor Lawrence at quarterback where there isn't a firm grasp on who the alpha X wide receiver is in this offense. And I think that's where the true upside lies. Because by all accounts, we think it should be DJ Chark as the wide receiver 1 in this offense. But he was getting outproduced last year by the likes of Keelan Cole and Colin Johnson. Laviska Shenault almost outproduced him as a rookie. Chark was terrible last year by every single metric: efficiency, production, time on the field because he had some health issues. Could we write some of that off and say, yeah, the Jacksonville Jaguars were in tank mode? Chark had no reason to play through the injury? Maybe. And that's why I'm excited for DJ Chark this year as well at his ADP. But it could also tell us that maybe Chark isn't going to be this true alpha target magnet at some parts or all of 2021. So Marvin Jones, I think, in his potential range of outcomes, could take over as the target leader in this offense. That would not shock me at all whatsoever. Laviska Shenault might lead the team in receptions, but he's a close to the line of scrimmage, gadget-type player, not an outside playmaker. And at worst, we've seen Marvin Jones be a startable flex option, have week-winning fantasy weeks, playing as the wide receiver 2 on his team. So MJJ, once again, he's a sleeper. We're taking a shot on the late rounds. Should have a solid floor unless the Jags are just absolutely terrible on offense. And he has a path to be the number 1 or number 2 pass-catching option as a downfield receiver and a touchdown scorer where the fantasy points are made.
I love it. I mean, Steph, who's the best red zone threat on the Jaguars? It might be Marvin Jones. It's not Tim Tebow, I'll tell you that. Shenault can get crafty on some of these jet sweeps like we've seen Debo and Ayuk do in San Francisco. Chark is a taller wide receiver, but he does struggle with that strength. Marvin Jones is a tried and true red zone threat, a tried and true downfield threat, and I couldn't love this take more. It's almost like you were taking the words out of my mouth, because I look at this Jacksonville team and I think worst case scenario, like as things stand, if Chark is the 1, Shenault emerges as the 2, and MJJ is the 3, which is kind of the narrative that everyone's pushing. ETN's getting receptions out of the backfield. Lawrence is the quarterback. I think Marvin Jones still has value as a wide receiver 3 this year. You look at the Jaguars in terms of pass attempts, and last season with Gardner Minshew, Jake Luton, I think Mike Glennon might have started a couple games. No, was it Mike Glennon? I don't even know. Their quarterbacks were trash last year. It was Minshew, It was Luton, it was somebody else.
It was Glennon.
It was Glennon. Okay, good. They were 7th in pass attempts in the NFL because the defense is terrible and they had to throw the ball. I mean, even though they were essentially tanking, they still had to act competitive in games, and these guys are coaching and playing for their jobs. So they were 7th in pass attempts. This Jaguars team, look at what they did in the draft. They drafted Lawrence at 1. They spent their other first-round pick on running back. Their defense isn't going from 0 to 100 in 2021. So their defense is going to struggle. Now you actually get a competent quarterback with promise and Trevor Lawrence coming in. Would not be surprised to see them finish in top 5 in pass attempts in 2021. And something we always look for on these teams with 3 good wide receivers is, 1, do they have enough volume in the offense to support them? Check for Jacksonville. And 2, is there a tight end of consequence? No, Tim Tebow is not a tight end of consequence in this offense.
Hey, man.
And Tyler Eifert's, I mean, might catch a touchdown or 2, but in terms of targets, in terms of volume, he's not. And Tyler Eifert's not either. So, like, they're going to be funneling volume to the receiver position. You look at teams like Carolina last season that had 3 top 25 wide receivers. You look at the Dallas Cowboys with Jarwin out. Dalton Schultz was okay. They had 3 good wide receivers in that offense. You look at Cincinnati with no big tight end of consequence. They can support 3 wide receivers this season. Jacksonville's in the mix, and that is if Chark and Shenault are the 2 with Jones as the 3. He has that value. And to your point, we don't know that Chark has that role on lock. It's been pretty nebulous coming out of the OTAs, and Urban Meyer doesn't seem to like him very much, and he didn't really show it on the field last season. So we'll see. It could be a battle for snaps between Marvin Jones and DJ Chark on the outside, but that's just for upside. For where he's being drafted right now in the 11th round, he's just an absolute steal. So I'm with you on Marvin Jones. Fantastic take. I absolutely love it.